Creating reports is also probably the thing that I use the most for Castle Learning as a teacher. And it's a little bit counterintuitive. It's going to say reports here, but you're not going to want to do that. You're actually going to want to go and look at the actual assessment itself. So the reports, I think, would be really good if you're doing long-term tracing, but I'm not sure that I would actually use it for anything. Just because I haven't been able to use the longer term aspects of it to my advantage. It's more of a standards based, and I'm usually looking at content. So what you'll do to create a report after you've given your students a test is that you'll go back into your tests or your assignments, and you'll scroll along. So this is an assignment that's been done already by students, and you'll click onto the first icon right here where it says assign/monitor. And while students are taking the test online or in person, I'm always on this button because I'm watching them while they take the test. And this is great because as a teacher, I actually see real time what I've done well or what I've done poorly, which is one of the things that I like to see as far as like how I've done for teaching that particular unit. So when you get it, and it pulls it up, you can look at it in a variety of different ways. And for this particular assignment, it's showing me the first class that's on there. I could drop it down and look at any, and I could also pull up all of my classes to see for a unit what I need to work on for an entire unit. So for this, you can see the student's record going across with their score. And it also tells you how quickly or how slowly they took the test for the amount of questions. It'll give you an individual report for a student. This is really useful for parent-teacher conferences. I use this for our back-to-school night with parents to explain to them how their student was doing on the assessment that we actually did. So the blue lines are going to show you things that they do well on. There's lots of different things you can sort it by, but to keep it clean to look at, I've kept it to topics. So these are subtopics within my new framework. This is difficulty in reading, and this is great because if a student can understand, and this particular student comprehended all the questions on an easier level, but the harder the content and academic vocabulary is, the harder it is for that particular student. As a Regents teacher, it helps me to know how do you do for cartoons, for speaker questions, quotes, what are your strengths and weaknesses, what do you need to work on? And it keeps a cumulative record for the student for the entire year of what things they need to work on as far as individual skills for reading. It also gives a breakdown of the questions they got wrong. As they're taking the test, I can click on these and I can see what they're getting wrong. And if you wanted to, you could create either for the class or for the student, they can make a vocabulary study sheet based on the assessment that they've just taken. So what I'll do is if all the students are here for the class, what I'll do is I'll actually go all the way down to the bottom and I choose one called Class Cumulative Report. And this is what we go over after we take a test. And so I'll talk to the students and I'll say, okay, guys, let's take a look at how we did for this test. And it looks like the class average was a 71. That's great. Everything that's blue are things that we did really well on. So let's see what you guys all got right. That's great. Everybody knows that coal and iron are resources you need for the Industrial Revolution. All right, guys, which one's the shortest one? Look down at your list of questions and see which one is the shortest and is red, because that's going to be the one that we did the worst on. 17. Okay, so we're going to look at this two ways. One of you got this right, but the rest of you all chose answer number 1, and we need to figure out why all of you think it's answer number 1. So the question is super long, and it talks about workers, and it talks a little bit about managers, but the word that you thought was the correct word is this word right here, cooperation. That's not what they were doing. This is something that's happening because, and then we can go down to below. For number 2, they were all losing their jobs because of the technology. And then with a reading passage like this, I would also say to the students, All right, guys, raise your hand if you skipped the reading passage and just picked a question, which sadly is what a lot of kids will do. So this way you can go over it with the whole entire class, which is great. You can get a sense again of like what skills, so that was a speaker question, your students need to work on. You can get a sense of the class's general vocabulary, and it gives instant feedback with skills that are good for them to know going forward what they need to stress and work on. And then you can print this to your PDF. So for reports, that's how I use those to go over them either individually with students in parent-teacher conferences, or also how I use it to review for myself what I did poorly on a unit, or for what kinds of questions my students need help with.